All right, let's wrap up the show talking some of the Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because I just want to talk about where I was right again. You know, over the weekend, I had a very funny, viral moment. I picked the Cardinals to destroy the Commanders, and the complete inverse happened, and I've deserved every bit of crow that I've been eating since then. But there are some things I've been very right about. I was right about the Niners. They look to be regressing. Even though I said they'll make the playoffs, I said they're going to regress. I was right about the Cincinnati Bengals. I have serious worries about them making the playoffs, even if they beat the Carolina Panthers, and it didn't look particularly great doing so. And another take I feel like I was right about. The Philadelphia Eagles are just nonsense. They are so infuriating. And I tried to explain to every Eagle fan that would listen to me, and to their credit, some did, but most didn't. And this is where I'm going to kind of rub it in the face of Eagles fans a little bit. I've tried to explain profusely that a running back is not going to solve the Philadelphia Eagles' problems. Sure, it'll make them more dynamic. It'll make them more fun to watch. And I understand A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith weren't in this game. But the issue for the Philadelphia Eagles last year was not the offense. You fired Brian Johnson. Awesome. Guess who Jaden Daniels' quarterback coach is? I'll let you look that one up. It's Brian Johnson. You add Kellen Moore to the mix, who was let go of Dallas. After having a very good season with Dallas, they let him go. What does that tell you? They don't value Kellen Moore. You went through all these things on offense to try to make you more dynamic, and it didn't matter. Because the issue for the Eagles has always been two things, and they didn't address either of them. And it's so infuriating because I was so clearly right on the Eagles, and they might make the playoffs because they have so much talent that it would be a travesty if they didn't make the playoffs. But they're not winning a single game in the playoffs against a competent coach, a competent quarterback, and a competent organization. They're just not. This team is pathetic. They are. And they had two issues that they didn't address in the offseason that I kept on pounding the table to say, address these. Fire Nick Sirianni and fix the secondary. The two biggest issues for the Eagles last year are still the two biggest issues. Who would have thought Cooper DeJean, who everyone was pounding the table for Howie Roseman, he's an elite, electric general manager. Howie Roseman is on like his fourth head coach. Cooper DeJean is not playing. Their secondary looks abysmal again. And then you want to take it to Nick Sirianni. Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni clearly don't like each other. We've talked about that. That's been widely reported. They have a drift between each other. They don't like each other. Nick Sirianni is still making boneheaded decisions. He can't beat Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It doesn't matter who's the quarterback of that team. They can't beat him. The Saints versus Eagles game last week, we're probably talking about firing Nick Sirianni last week if Saquon Barkley doesn't bail them out. He's a buffoon of a head coach. He's a character on the sidelines. He's not mature. He's not a leader amongst men. He's a fool. And at times, it just becomes cringeworthy how much of an immature head coach this guy acts like. Their defense has issues on the back end, and they didn't fix any of them. Sure, one of their first-round picks doesn't look to be a complete bust as of right now. But Cooper DeJean can't get on the field. And all of their free agent signings have basically been bad. Bryce Huff has been invisible. Remember, Howie Roseman chose Bryce Huff over Hassan Reddick. That's what happened. And Howie Roseman doesn't get nearly the amount of criticism that he deserves. At this point, and I'm just going to say it, Howie Roseman must have a deal with the media, a blood oath that he has sworn by the ESPNs or the Fox Sportses of the world that he is not allowed to be criticized. Because largely, players have not panned out under Howie Roseman. If I'm not mistaken, Doug Peterson, I think he might have hired Chip Kelly, this new head coach, Nick Sirianni. He's just going through head coaches. And he's going to have to fire another head coach. General managers do not get this many head coaches as Howie Roseman has had. And he's going to get another shot. He traded for Jahan Dotson. And I went on the air. I went on this channel. And I said, guys, Jahan Dotson's not good. You just gave up a third-round pick for Jahan Dotson, and there's a reason. There's a reason why the Commanders traded him in division. It was so stupendously obvious. It was so obvious. And still you had Eagles fans saying, Howie did it again. It drives me insane. The infatuation with Howie Roseman, who has largely gotten away with a lot of different blunders. Players, his draft picks. Nakobe Dean's not great. The cornerback, Keely Ringo's not great. Cooper DeJean can't get on the field. I mean, at some point, we got to hold Howie Roseman accountable. It's not just Nick Sirianni. Yes, he is a buffoon, and he's going to take the fall for this. Howie Roseman is not. But at some point, when are we just going to say Howie Roseman is Mel Kiper Jr. if he was a general manager? The one reason why the media continues to infatuate and just be splendid and thrill us over Howie Roseman is because his mock drafts and his trades look a lot like things you see on ESPN. That's why. And the fact that they haven't addressed the elephant in the room of Nick Sirianni's clear incompetence is another failure on Howie Roseman's part. I know it's easy to point the blame game at Nick Sirianni, but we need to take a clear, hard look at Howie Roseman's failure as a general manager. Multiple whiffs in the draft, multiple bad trades, and he is going to have to hire yet another head coach. Look around the league. General managers, for the large part, do not get this many swings at a head coach. Normally, they get canned. And the inability that was so clear and obvious that this pass defense was not just getting fixed because James Bradbury isn't ruining it anymore. There's issues everywhere. This defense doesn't even look fierce anymore. And Bryce Huff has been a disaster. And letting Hassan Reddick go was clearly a disaster. And Nakobe Dean's been bad. And Cooper DeJean can't get on the field. And Darius Slay looks to be regressing. This Eagles team has so many issues. They have so many consequences coming their way. And the failure to not also realize that Howie Roseman has a clear hand in the shortcomings of the Philadelphia Eagles and that it's not just Nick Sirianni is a catastrophe all in its own that Eagles fans, the media, and more people need to talk about. Because it's easy to blame Nick Sirianni, but it ain't just him. If you go back to the clear two issues that I pointed out for the Philadelphia Eagles this year and said this is why they're going to severely regress and why they will not win a singular playoff game if they even get it that far, but they should because they have so much talent, is Howie Roseman. All roads lead back to Howie Roseman. The head coach should have been fired. Howie Roseman should have done that. He should have pulled the trigger, but he knows most GMs don't get swings at head coaches as many as he's had, and the defense never got fixed. Instead, we drafted the flashy guy in Cooper DeJean who had some clear question marks. There's a reason why he fell in the draft, and the year prior to that, it's almost like he did no scouting and just decided, let's just draft everyone on Georgia. They were good, and that didn't work out. The clear shortcomings of the Philadelphia Eagles were so predictable. And it's not just Nick Sirianni that deserves a big old slice of blame pie, but it's also Howie Roseman. And people need to recognize that.